And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Now, I've never been a huge racing fan. I certainly appreciate the sport, but I know that it's one of the most watched sports in the world, and there are different kinds of racing games. Racing in general. But even though I'm not a huge racing fan, I'm a big fan of racing games. I don't know why. I know that there's two major types of racing. There's actually quite a few more than that, but there's two that I know of, and one is the Formula Motor Racing, but there is also the NASCAR racing. Well, Jeff and Carl Horger, they designed a game based on NASCAR racing called Thunder Alley, which has become one of my favorite games. It's on my shelf. It is right over here because it is a great racing game. It uses drafting, which is something I like. So I was very excited to play the sequel that they came up with. This is Grand Prix. It's kind of a similar thing. In fact, I would say it's like 90% the same game, maybe 80% the same game, but this time it kind of takes place in the Formula Motor Racing world. So we got Formula D racing here using that same thing. So very exciting. Let's take a look at it. In Grand Prix, you're going to use one of the 4 racetracks that's included in the box, and you're going to set the cars up. Well, I just kind of put them out here randomly, but each player is going to control 2 cars from their team, so they're going to get a card that shows their 2 different racers that they have, and there's lots of different teams that you can have. And they're also going to possibly control some of the, well, not possibly, they're going to control some of the, they're called NPCs. They're going to be cars that are out there that have like a symbol on them, and then you'll show that you control those cars. You're not going to get points for those cars winning, but you're going to control them. And there's possibly some NPC cars that nobody controls, and then anybody can move those cards. Each round of the game, and the game's going to take place rounds until 3 laps have been completed. After 3 laps, players are going to get points based on how they've come in place. So there's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So you can see here that third place gives 15 points, first place 25, 10th place gives 1, and the most points is the winner. Or you can add up multiple races for your score. Players are going to have a handful of cards equal to the number of players in the game. And these cards are going to be used to race things. Now you'll notice that there are different numbers on the cards, and sometimes you'll be using some numbers when the race slows down, but usually you're using the big number on the card. So on your turn, you're going to pick one of your cards. Now, at the beginning of the game, all the cards are going to be on the same side. There's a dark and a light side. And I will say that these NPC cars are actually, they have this light gray side with white stripes and dark gray side with white stripes. I really wish they hadn't done this. I think this is a very bad graphical decision. It's really hard to tell. The game was already hard enough to remember, are we switching from gray sides to white side, etc. With these NPCs, they were even harder to tell apart from each other. So I don't know, I wish they'd done black and white or something just to make them that much more clear, or red or blue or something. This light gray, dark gray was kind of a pain. But anyway, when you play a card, you can pick any card that hasn't moved yet. It has to be a card that you control, whether it's one of your 2 cars or whether it's one of the NPC cars, and then you'll move the card that many spaces. Now, there are 4 different kinds of movement. There is lead movement, there is solo movement, there is line movement, and there is pursuit movement. And each of these has different numbers. The solo movement's the easiest one. You simply can move that car. It will cost different points to move laterally and then forward, and you can't bump into cars in front of you, so you're trying to move around cars. The rest of the movements, when you do lead movement, you will move, and all the cars behind you will follow you. When you play pursuit movement, you will move, and any car that you hit or run into, you'll push them all around. And line movement is like a combination of the two. When you move, you will pull all the cars with you, both behind you and the ones in front of you. So your car is going to move multiple times during a turn, and if you set it up correctly, you can move your cars into position so they're pulling other cars, or so that other cars are pulling them and moving them around. When you play a card on one of your own cars, you'll notice they each have different colors on them. Some of them are safe. These are safe. The white ones, you're fine. But for the rest of them, you have to take a token. So this shows that I have some engine problems, and place it on my car, showing that that car has taken that much damage. Now, this damage is not too much of a problem. If you take too much damage, you're not going to be able to move your car, and your car can crash. But on your turn, you can decide to pull into the pits. That's this inner lane here. And you can get rid of these tokens, and each token you get rid of is going to move you that many spaces backwards. So this one's 10. You'll notice this one here is 5. There's tire markers, and they're they're much easier. You know, they're only 2 to change your tires, but you'll be moving backwards and then coming back in. And when you come back in after coming out of the pit, you'll move a smaller number on these. But everyone's likely going to have to pit at some point or the other. So all the cars are going to move. You're going to move them. You can move your own cars, your neutral cars you control, or the neutral cars no one controls. Once all the cars have been moved and players have used the cards, they can discard and they'll be drawing back up. Then we'll draw a random event card. And these event cards can do all sorts of things. There's things about tires. There's a safety zone that can be put on the board, which causes everybody to move slowly. There might be a car who has the most engine markers. It blows its engine and it's out of the race. And there's actually several cars that have that. Sometimes you get these close call tokens when you almost run into other cars. And sometimes whoever has the most of those close call tokens is going to take some damage also. And so one of these will be drawn, and then you go into the next round and you just keep going and going and going. Like I said, there are 4 different tracks included in the game. So let's take a look. We also have this one here. This is the Dr. Tomas Gomez from Spain. And this one here is the Speedway from Cincinnati. And in spirit of full disclosure, there's a Korean track here. And they liked my last review of the game, so this one's called the Vasel Towers Circuit. You can see it there. So anyway, each of these tracks is a different one. You can even mix these with the Grand Prix, with the Thunder Alley tracks and race on those if you want. And there's a lot more rules in the game. Different wear markers might have different things, but essentially the game is a lot simpler than these rules will have you feel. You're simply going to play a card and move it. You just got to learn the differences between each movement. There's conditional movement where sometimes you can pull the cars behind you, sometimes you have to, but eventually you figure out there's only 4 different types of movement. Once you figure those out, you know how to race. Now, well, first of all, I want to say that I really appreciate them putting my name on the racetrack, but that doesn't color my review at all. If you think it does, well, then you probably shouldn't watch my reviews. But it was very nice of them, but it doesn't affect my review here. Grand Prix, I'm just going to come out at the beginning and say, I don't think it's as good as Thunder Alley. At least I don't like it as much. Now, some of the people I played it with who like the different racing things said, oh yeah, this does feel different. It feels more like the Formula Motor Racing. Well, I'll give it to them. They're the fans of that sport. It certainly does feel different. There are minor changes, and it mentions those throughout the rules, but I wouldn't have minded a page in the back that said, here are all the differences. But some of the differences are when you displace a car here, you push the car forward and things like that. I like this game, all right? I just don't like it as much as Thunder Alley. I like this game. And I'll tell you why I like it, then I'll tell you the things I don't like as much. I like the fact, I love that when you play cards, you're drafting. I think that's fascinating to move them around the track. And I mean, in this track, you don't move a whole lap in one turn, but you move pretty fast. And remember, in this game, a lap is kind of a simulated of many laps. But I like how you move, and then you move again, and then you move again, and you're moving cars before you and after you, and you have to figure out the best time to play that solo movement. You want to get your cars in a line so you can pull each other if possible. It's a nice concept, and it works really well. The tracks look really good. The cars look good, although a couple of them were hard to tell apart. And like I said, that gray, dark gray thing, it starts to wear on you after a while. I really wish there was a better way to tell the differences between the cars that are out there. And like which turn are we going from dark gray to gray? I mean, there's a token that tells you, but still, it's one of those things that, I mean, every game I've ever played of this and Thunder Alley, people are always asking, wait, which car are we switching to which? Because you might think you remember what cars move, but there's so many cars out there that it can be forgettable. But I like that concept. I like the damage. I really like the change they made in this game where the damages have numbers on them, and when you pit stop, that's how far back you go. That's a really good change. I'm really impressed with overall how that works. I'm not as impressed with the fact that they took out, this is a minor thing, but they had the different colors in the cards, and sometimes you need to break a tie, you flip the card, and you just looked at the order of the colors. Here they have tokens that you pull. I really like the colors in the cards. I thought that was much better. So where do I not like this as much as Thunder Alley? And again, remember, I do like this game. I'm just pointing out the things I don't like as much. But the biggest one for me, by far, well, there's 2 main things, and they go hand in hand. One is fewer cars. In this one, you have 2 cars. In Thunder Alley, you could have up to 5 cars, and I actually preferred that. I liked having a lot of cars. Why do I like having a lot of cars? Because it's fun to control multiple cars, but it's also fun if, like, let's say one of your cars gets blown up, no big deal, you still have 4 left or 3 left or whatever. In this game, when one of your cars gets blown up or has an engine failure, you're down to 1 car, and unless you're playing multiple races, going down to one car, unless you're in the lead and everyone else is kind of scattered about, you can effectively be taken out of the race, and that can be not necessarily as fun, especially when you lose a car. You also lose the ability for your cars to hook up with each other and move each other along. And it's not a huge deal, but I just like having more cars. You know, there's some of those event cards, like whoever has the most engine wear tokens, and you just took one, boom, you're out. Yes, that's a thing you have to do sometimes when you play these cards. You have to take those chances. And I understand taking the chances, but here a chance can effectively remove you from the game. And I'm not as big of a fan of that. And that couples with the fact that there's these neutral NPC cars. And I really dislike that. I really don't like controlling cars that give me nothing. They're moving them. They're there to help my cars. It's like dummy players. These cars move stupidly. You don't move them to do well at all. They're there to help your own cars or to hurt other cars. Now the game comes with lap markers, just like the Thunder Alley did, and you put these on cars that are lapped and lapped cars are out, and you'll see a lot of the NPC cars will get lapped because you obviously don't put the effort into them, or you'll play a card on them that does like major wear and tear because you don't really care about those cards. And also, because your cars are like yellow or my cars are purple, but then I'm also controlling the blue star cards, there's kind of a visual disconnect there too. And so really, both those things drop this game considerably. I mean, Thunder Alley is one of my favorite games. This one I think is just all right, and I don't know that I would ever play this over Thunder Alley because of those two main features. Everything else, and some of the things here are better. Like I said, I really like the pit stops. I think they're better. I think the way the cards pushed everything is just a little bit more streamlined. The tracks are fine. I like having the tracks are pretty cool. I like the fact that they're compatible. And I think a lot of people are going to like this, and a lot of people won't have those hang-ups that I have, because I'm the same guy who doesn't like having a dummy player in a game. And I feel like these NPC cars are almost like a dummy player. I'm like, yeah, I'll move that car. Sure, I know the point of them is to help your own cars out, but at the cost of them winning the race, that just seems, maybe that actually happens in Formula Motor Racing, and I don't know about it. But I just don't like it that much. But still, it's a really cool racing game. It looks more complicated than it is. It's really simple to move the cars and draft and see everything move, and you're seeing lots of cars moving, and there's always, jockeying for position, and things will change, and a lot more cars get lapped than this one and the other because of that NPC thing, but it's still a fascinating, fun experience, and you might want to check it out. That's Grand Prix. Dice Tower Judgment, approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Затвори врата!